Howdy, guys. Welcome to night 44 of Big Brother All Stars. This is Cliff Notes from outside the Big Brother house. Hope you all had a fantastic Thursday. Exciting times inside the Big Brother house. We had an eviction, we had an HOH competition. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the aftermath as well. Now, I shouldn't have to say it by now, but just in case we've got some new viewers and such, this thing is chock full of spoilers. If you don't want to hear spoilers beyond what happened on the Thursday night episode, I'm sorry, you may need to wait a few days and then come back and listen to the show after a few days, because otherwise you're going to get things spoiled you don't want spoiled. So you've been warned, okay? All right, so here we go. Just as a bit of a refresher, Ian and Tyler were on the block. Eviction votes occur by a 5-3 vote. The evicted house guest is Ian. Ian was voted out. Not a huge surprise, although there were a lot of people trying to play with votes and different things. We'll talk about some of the aftermath of that that occurred overnight. But Ian is evicted against Tyler. He goes out, has a very classic conversation with Julie. Is actually kind of excited to find out there was a big alliance that was working against him. He was afraid it was just a bunch of inferior players who'd screwed up. So he was happy to hear there's actually strategizing that drove him out the door. Classic Ian. I'm still team Ian, and I think he's going to go to the jury house. He'll do what he needs to do and vote for the winner at the end of the season. So enjoyed your game, Ian. A little too short, but Big Brother. All right, so we have the eviction. We then go to what starts off as a live HOH competition. It actually was not completed by the time the show was over. Only took about 5 minutes after the show was over, but it took us a long time to find out. But for those of you who may have missed the last couple of minutes, this is a competition right here. 3D fire hydrants, trying to put them together. What is that? Maybe a dozen, 20 pieces, something like that. Danny could not compete. Danny did not use her power to be able to compete for second HOH. Colored me shocked. I really thought that you always compete if you can. It just blows me away. But she chose to not use the power. I guess she really didn't like having HOH power this week. But the HOH competition takes place. The new HOH is Memphis. Memphis's second HOH competition win. He also has won a safety suite. So Memphis has won a few competitions this year. He wins. We don't know that. The feeds are down for several hours, but eventually they pick back up, and Memphis has won the competition. All right. Yeah, I've said before, I kind of want to see the house shaken up. I'm not sure a Memphis HOH is necessarily shaking up the house, but we'll see what happens. You never know. We'll start seeing alliances splinter at some point. Probably not this week, but we'll see. But anyway, so Memphis wins the HOH. So now let's go into some conversations that take place through the evening. Memphis' HOH also goes to bed early, and he had said after he got his room, he was going to bed. He's not talking to anyone in the morning. So we're not seeing a lot of campaign from Memphis' standpoint. But we have a lot of other conversations, people throwing each other under the bus, things like that. So let's talk about, one more thing, the new have-nots. Now, as some of us had suspected, Ian was a have-not. He got evicted. So now there's only two people left, and that's Davon and David, who were have-nots to pick new people. It looks like have-nots are just going to be two people now for this week. Davon, well, first of all, David is looking around to pick someone. Apparently, Tyler says, "Don't pick me, man. Don't pick me." So David looks over and picks Cody instead. Cody seemed maybe a little upset. Now, we didn't see this on live feeds. This is just hearing afterwards. But Cody apparently maybe was a little bit mad, apparently. But later he gave David a hard time and said, "Yeah, we're good. I get it. It's all right." So he didn't seem that upset later. On the other hand, Davon had to pick someone, and she picked Christmas. And apparently Christmas was quite furious about it. And we'll talk about that in the conversation in just a few minutes. All right, so a few conversations taking place in the key room. Danny and Cody are talking. They're saying that, man, Memphis and Christmas are really putting targets on themselves. Memphis because he's winning these competitions, and Christmas just because she's loud and annoying and talking to a lot of different people. Memphis is starting to take a more active role. He won. He was more active in terms of strategy and all of that. Got to be careful. As he takes a more active role, he also has a little bit more exposure. And we are certainly, it seems like especially this evening, but for the past few days, Memphis and Christmas being attached together seems like that's becoming more and more of a conversation piece. So people are identifying that they may be a duo, and they just better be careful. They're no longer off the radar. They're sneaking their way in. All right, Cody is also mentioning that Davon is trying to throw David under the bus, and he doesn't think that's really right. Now, the plan ahead of time had been potentially for Tyler and Nicole to claim that David had voted for Tyler to stay, and then Nicole was going to claim that she had voted to keep Ian, protect her with relationship with Ian and everything. Not real sure why they're talking here about Davon throwing David under the bus, because apparently now Davon is claiming that David voted to send Tyler home, which he did, but she's claiming it and trying to throw him under the bus with that vote. We'll talk about more. She has some conversations, probably the key conversations that you think. Finally, Danny is thinking that Memphis is probably going to put up David and Kevin on the block tomorrow or today. She's probably right. We'll see, but I think she's probably right. Okay, in the photo room, Kevin, David, and Enzo are all talking. They mentioned the fact that Ian, apparently a little bit before the live show went off, that Ian went around apologizing for threatening people with his jury vote earlier in the day. Class act, Ian. Good job. So he went out kind of backing out some of the stuff he'd said. David is talking about that apparently he was screaming at some point. It sounds like maybe during the competition. Enzo says, was it a derogatory term? I'm not sure what that means, but then it seems like maybe it's rather than a derogatory, it seems like maybe someone had said something and David yelled at them. I'm really not sure because it wasn't on the feed, and it wasn't talked about a lot after this. Enzo said something about, look, people get fired up during the challenges or the competitions. That's just part of it. It's just a game and whatever. Didn't hear much more about it beyond that, so maybe a little not as serious as this first conversation suggested. All right, in the comic room, Davon and Nicole are talking. Davon is talking again that Christmas was furious. She got picked for the have-not, and wondering why. They don't know why. Nicole saying, you didn't really say anything bad. You just picked her. And they also, Davon and Nicole are both wondering if they're close enough for Memphis to be safe. Nicole, yes. Davon, yeah, probably not so much. But we'll see. All right, another conversation in the upper lounge. Memphis and Christmas are talking. Memphis won HOH, so Christmas is certainly up there conversing with him. Christmas thinks that there'll be 2 double evictions this year based on math and the shorter season and all that. And she very well could be right. She tries to work it out with the backgammon pieces and everything. It also is looking like there may not be a battle back this year just because of the way the timing works out. It wasn't mentioned to Ian when he walked out the door, so maybe a little different season as far as that goes. 2 double evictions is going to be quite interesting, won't it? Memphis is saying that Davon, it really isn't on his radar. He says she can't win competitions. She'll have no power once her numbers are gone. Christmas is a little bit worried, saying, yeah, but Davon, you know her, she can stir things up. You got to be careful about that. But Memphis says, whatever. My main target's going to be Kevin. And he says, I'm not talking to anyone until tomorrow. So Kevin almost definitely sounds like he's on the block. Because of the beef that Memphis and David have had in the past, I would expect David to be on there. But it could be Davon as well. But I truly expect to see 2 of those 3 on the block with the other one as the backup. All right, so in the key room, Kevin and Danny are speaking. Both of them is thinking that David's going up probably, but they're not sure who else. So in the comic room, Cody and Nicole are talking. Cody is saying, that David is just kind of a waste. There's better targets out. Let's go convince Memphis to go for Davon and Kevin. They're much more dangerous. They're closer together. He thinks David is a waste. Now, there may be also, I wonder if there's some thinking from Cody that maybe as Kevin and Davon are gone, that he could maybe bring David in a little bit with some of these guys, alliance and things like that. Maybe. I'm not sure, but there may be some motive or to the way he's saying this. Cody does, in fact, later have a heart-to-heart with David in the love room, saying, hey, David, you need to reach out and communicate to me more. You just haven't done it. And David says, yeah, I'm just kind of an island. He says, yeah, I know, reach out to me. Cody is telling David that the beef between him and Memphis happened in week 2. He said, man, it's week 7. You've had 5 weeks. You should have used that to heal relationships rather than plot revenge. And now Memphis is on the block, and let's see what happens. Well, David did try to kind of squash some stuff with Memphis, had said, hey, let's pretend like we still are real upset with each other. I'm not sure if it's going to be enough to keep him off the block this week, because even though he thinks it's squashed, Memphis maybe not so much. David is saying that he looked at Cody when he came in as a mentor. Cody's giving him a hard time saying, oh, you kind of screwed my game. You went and said stuff I said and everything. Is that how you treat a mentor? But then he says, I'm just fooling you. He says, I couldn't mess around with you, David, like that if I didn't like you. He's trying to get very close to David. Makes me think again, maybe he's trying to protect himself from David's side. David is talking about growing up in two households, his early years, his mom and dad, just in general life conversations. After that, in the comic room now, Nicole and Christmas are speaking. Christmas is saying, going back to the have-not pick, she said, man, I felt targeted by Davon with that have-not. She had zero reason to pick me. And it just proves that Davon keeps grudges. She's coming after me just because, when I was HOH and all that, and it's just a grudge. Okay, yeah, you got to pick someone, and Christmas is as good a choice as any. Nicole is saying she doesn't want David gone. Both of them think that Davon and Kevin are too close. Both of them are saying they want Kevin gone. I got to say, everyone, it seems like, is talking Kevin this week as a primary target. All right, in the HOH, we have the HOH reveal of Memphis's room. It's not on the live feed. All right, also happy 41st birthday, Kevin, today. All right, in the photo room, Cody and Enzo are speaking. Cody wants Davon or Kevin on the block, so if one of them wins veto, then they can only remove themselves and they can send the other one home. Enzo is saying Danny is dangerous, and she's going to want to keep Davon. They want both of them gone, along with Christmas, is also mentioned as their primary target. According to Cody, Christmas asked Memphis who the bottom two are in the committee, and Memphis said Tyler and Nicole. Is that really what happened? Did Christmas really ask? Is that what Memphis really said? Don't know, but she threw out the names of Tyler and Nicole as bottom of the committee alliance, according to Memphis. So now, all right, here's an important conversation, and I want to cover. This is probably the most important one of the whole evening. In the key room, this is Davon and Tyler. Davon congratulates Tyler on surviving, and then she says, Tyler, I kept my word to you. I voted to keep you. She didn't, but she's telling him she did. But then she says, who do you think the votes were for you to save you? And he says, I'm thinking maybe Davon, you, David, Kevin, Enzo, maybe Cody. So wrong. Enzo and Cody correct. The rest, no. They all voted to send you home. Davon is saying, look, do you know that David voted for you? I really think David voted to send you home, Tyler. She's saying that he had talked to Danny in the have-not room, came down, said there was a plan to get a tie vote, and then Danny would break it and send Tyler home. David told Davon, so Davon's saying this, that he told Davon he had 3 votes and Davon was number 4. Something about Danny having a vendetta against Tyler, and so Davon is really throwing David under the bus, saying he voted to send you out the door, Tyler. Don't be hugging him and congratulating him and such. Davon is saying she thinks that the votes against Tyler were David, Nicole, and either Christmas or Memphis or maybe Enzo. It's hard to hear the last name. Now, here's the thing. Is this all just a cover-up for her to protect herself, to convince Tyler that she voted to protect him, just to protect her this week? Is she just upset with David enough that she just wants to throw him under the bus? There is the strategy, make someone else a bigger target, which she is certainly doing right there. And is she trying to stir things up between Tyler and Danny as well? That could be a motive as well, but I think she's trying to protect herself by claiming she voted for Tyler and David did not. Later in the bathroom, Davon and Danny are speaking, and Davon says, man, Tyler's acting weird. And again, she says that she thought David and perhaps Memphis or Christmas voted against Tyler. He's really stirring things up. I think she has to be very careful because Danny, Tyler, people are going to start comparing notes, and they all know, I think, who voted more or less for who. And so it's not going to add up. I think it's going to put an even bigger target on Davon's back because she's just playing a little too hard right now because she knows that there's a possibility of her being on the block. All right, so finally, all right, no, not quite fine. Finally, Davon says, Danny, David is an idiot. If he is on the block, if I win veto, I'm not pulling that guy off the block. So not a whole lot of niceties right now between Davon and David. All right, so final conversation, and this isn't as much gameplay, but in the love room, Nicole and Danny are talking. Just a lot of talk from Nicole. She's crying again. She's feeling bad for Ian, how hard the game is, how much therapy she's going to need when she gets out. She's just feeling bad about the whole Ian situation. Are they true tears? Are they crocodile tears? I'll leave that for y'all to decide. All right, guys, we got to shut it down. I will see y'all in 24 hours. We'll find out who is nominated. So y'all have a fantastic Friday. SKD 143. Cheers, guys. Bye.